Now we're going to move on to the coloring. So I'm going to go through this in order of how I actually showed making the components. So first of all, the center. All right, so this is the center of the poppy here. So obviously we have two sizes here, okay? And when we do the poppy, I'm going to use a little bit of a sort of an appley green. Now remember, obviously different brands of color change, so it doesn't, as I said, just sort of something fairly bright. This is like an apple green color. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to dust this over the top of the, just really, as I said, just a little bit slightly brighter than the color that it is. All right, so you're just going to just brush that over the top here like so. And I've already done that on the small one. Then we take a food art pen. So this is a double-ended food art pen. All right, here I'm going to use the wider end of the food art pen here, and going to just take the, and then where your raised parts are there, you're just going to just run your pen down the raised part. So you're just going to go, and I found if you just do it from top to bottom, so what it's going to do is going to give you these little lines here. So you're just going to run this down from the top to the bottom here. So you're going to get these little like black lines on the top of the poppy. All right, so you can see there the little lines on the top. All right. So that's all we have to do on those. So that's fairly simple. So I've done that obviously on the large and the small one. So that's the poppy center. Now we're going to move on to the poppy petals. Okay. So I'm going to show you first of all just the small poppy petals. Okay. So these ones are actually, because they're quite tiny as well, I'm going to just use actually two colors on here. I'm going to use a little bit of green, the appley green color. I'm just going to put that right at the base of the petal, both front and back, okay? So a little bit of green here at the bottom. And then I'm going to take some ruby. So ruby, the color I've used on like my red roses and things like that. So just a ruby red color. And I'm going to just brush this on from the outside to the inside. So you're just going to get that darker color just onto the edge of the poppy. Now remember, always put your color onto a napkin or paper towel. Of course, you can wear gloves for this. I'm just using my hands, just wash them afterwards. It comes off very easily, but as I said, you can wear gloves. And you're going to do this darker. So you see how you have the original color in the middle and this darker color around the outside, okay? Then with the small one, you will take your, this time I'm going to use the fine end of the food art pen. So this is obviously the finer end here. And I'm just going to just do some little tiny lines onto here. So you're just going to just draw some little tiny lines onto the petal here. So these little tiny lines will just come from the inside, just sort of random. You see these are just going to be done on all of the petals. All right, you can do these on all of the 4 petals like this, okay? And that's all we need to do on those. Those will be ready for then assembly. Now on the large petals, all right, so basically on the sort of field poppy type of poppy, I'm going to start off with actually an orange color. So I'm going to use some orange, and this orange color, I'm going to take some of this because the English field poppy or wild poppy has, as I said, it's more of a tomatoey orangey color. So I'm going to use some orange dust here, and I'm going to brush this about 1/3 of the way up. So you see how I'm almost coming up about 1/3 of the way up the petal, and I do this both on the front and on the back. So the color on the poppy is pretty much the same. The only thing that will vary is you don't do the black lines on the outside, it's just on the inside petals. But you see how you're going to come about 1/3 of the way up with this color. All right, so that's with the orange. Then we're going to take now some just normal red. So this is going to be some just normal red color. And then the red is going to go into the, basically into the sort of the next third. So you're just going to just brush some red onto the top here. Now this is going to be slightly darker than the color of the actual paste. So what this will do, it will actually help to, especially on the front, accentuate the veining. So you're just going to just brush the red. So just almost like just use a sort of almost a scrubbing back and forward action like this. Okay, so that's going to be, as I said, in the with the red, you can see how it brings up the lines. And then finally we're going to use some of the ruby color. Now the ruby color, I'm using a flat brush. And just like when I showed peonies and flowers like that, I'm just going to just brush this ruby color around the very, very edge of the petal. So you see how I'm just going to bring from the outside to the inside. So your color dissipates as it comes away, but you're actually going to just blend from the outside to the inside, like this, just with the ruby. Okay, and then we're going to then take some of the green. So with the green, I'm just going to put a little bit of green just right at the very base of the petal, both front and back. Now, when you're doing this, I would suggest, of course, I've already got 3 petals done. If you're doing 4 petals, you do the orange on all of them, and then the red, and then the ruby, and then the green, because it's easier to do it in a progression like that. But you see how you have this beautiful color on your petal. Okay. Now then, on this one, we're going to use the food art pen, but this time we're going to use the wide end. So the wide end is the one I used for the obviously for the centers. So here I'm going to use my food art pen. I'm just going to just do some lines. So it's going to come from the center. Now, alternatively to this, you could, of course, use a paintbrush and black food color. And of course, if you're doing this in air drying clay, you could do this with obviously a black marker pen as well, the fine marker pen. But as I said, this is the food one, so obviously we're using here. You see how you're going to get this beautiful sort of color coming from here. Okay, so obviously you do the four petals here. So these are already have been completed, ready for assembly. Okay. So next up is going to be to show you how to do the buds. All right. So we have basically the closed buds. All right. So these are the closed buds here. Just going to change out my napkin here. All right. So with the closed buds there, we're going to use some green. So all you're going to do here is we're going to just put some green onto the surface here. All right, and then just a little tiny bit of foliage. So the foliage, which is the darker green here, that's just going to go just at the very sort of top here where the stem meets. All right, so just a little bit of the darker green, foliage green, just right at the top there, just where the stem meets the top. Okay, on these buds, you're going to use a little bit of the so this is just a little bit of orange here. So I'm going to put just a little bit of orange on the bud here, and then just a little bit of ruby. So I'm just going to use the ruby color, and because you don't want to get this, of course, on the, so use your brush. You see how I'm using my brush like a knife. All right, so it's going to go here, it's going to go here, and it's going to give you that darker color onto there. All right, and then we're going to take then the apple green color, all right, the brighter green. I'm going to brush this onto the seed head. I'm going to brush this all over the seed head, and then you're going to also dust this just at the very, very base where the petal meets the sort of the top. Okay, so a little bit of the green color here, like so, and again a little bit of the foliage. It's going to go right at the very, very top there, like so. All right, so you see how you're going to get that beautiful color on your bud. You know, it's all about layering color, and just like in makeup or painting, it's all about basically blending the colors. On the little tiny bud there, that one, I'm just going to put just a little bit of the red, just carefully right at the bottom there. And again, we're going to take the brighter green here. I'm going to put the brighter green onto that. And then again, just take a little bit of the darker foliage green. Just what happens is, because the floral tape is a different color to your paste, this will just help to sort of blend the two together, you see, because then you just put this little bit of darker green, and so then you see how the color will come down nicely. All right, so those are the buds. So that's the buds completed. Now we're going to move on to the leaves. All right, so for the leaves, we're going to use, again, I'm just changing out napkins. Of course, there's no need to do this when you're doing it at home. I'm just so it's a little bit easier for you to see the colors I'm using. On the leaves, all right, so basically we're going to take the 2 greens we've used. So we're using like an appley green color. All right, so just going to put the appley green color just down the middle of the leaf, both front and back. You're just going to do this on all of the leaves, and these are little tiny ones. And then we're going to take then, now I'm going to use a sort of a flat brush. You could use obviously like a larger or a smaller, but when you do the foliage on here, because when you're ever just putting color on the edge of a leaf or a petal, like I did with the red, remember this is the color I used for the ruby, I used a flat type of brush. So you see how what I'm doing is now, is I'm taking this darker green, the foliage green, And I'm just going to blend that around the outside, okay? So you see how you're going to get this darker color around the outside of your leaves. And a flat brush is better for this project than, for example, using a round brush, okay? So just gonna dust this. And okay, and then we're going to, now once you've done that on the leaves, okay, so that's all of the basic coloring onto those. All right, and then the leaves would be steamed. All right, so I'm going to put my steamer on. So you would, of course, steam your leaves, and when you steam the leaves, that's going to sort of set the color. And then you're going to brush these with either leaf glaze, which remember is a diluted version of confectioner's glaze. There's many different companies sell like a leaf glaze, which is a diluted version. All right, so you've got, so I said leaf glaze, because confectioner's glaze is full strength glaze, which we've talked about before, and this makes things very shiny, whereas leaf glaze is diluted, all right? So it's going to give you a sort of more of a natural. So we're just going to bring my steamer in here. Just going to steam the leaves just gently. All right, that's going to just give them that nice natural look. Now the reason I'm not going to steam anything else at this stage, because when you actually put the poppies together, you can just, you know, you can, once you get them sort of how you're going to, you can sort of steam the poppy flower after it's assembled, all right? But anyway, so you're going to steam these, and then we will take some spray lacquer or some leaf glaze, and we're just going to glaze these, all right? So this is just going to be a spray lacquer. You're going to get this darker, slightly darker green on your edge. Now remember, this will evaporate, so it will leave the leaf a more natural. You see, it won't be too shiny. And also when you've done the leaves, you're going to pop those into styrofoam block, all right? Now the seed pod, I'm going to just change out my color palette here for sort of more of a creamy blue colors and things, grays and blues. And you're going to use just going to use this for the seed pod. Now when we do the seed pods, all right, you have two basic colors here. One of them is going to be this sort of slightly bluey gray green color, all right? Now these have been steamed, these ones are just steamed them, so obviously they're still a bit sticky. And the other one is going to be the sort of the natural one when it dries, okay? So when we do this, all right, we're going to use here, you're going to take a brush. So I'm going to start off with the green one here, all right? So this one, I'm going to use like a eucalyptus color, sort of a bluey green color. And I'm just going to do this just gently over the surface of the piece here. This is mainly over the main part of the seed pod with this light, and also over your floral tape as well. All right, then I'm going to take some gray. Now, of course, again, if you were doing, say, 3 of these, you do all of the greeny color, because I'm using the same brush, all right? So you're then just going to use the gray on top of that. So the gray will give you this nice sort of tonal color, and will actually also accentuate and give you this nice detail on your ribs. Okay, a little bit of the gray color onto here. Okay, and so it's going to give you that sort of bluey green color. And then I'm going to take a little bit of a brown color. This is almost like a sort of a browny gray color. Just use a little bit of that. It's going to be dusted on the top here. So you're just going to brush this on the top. So you're going to get a little bit of that color here, and also just a little bit of that just around the bottom part. All right, so you're just going to get this nice sort of tonal color onto your seed heads, you see, like that. And then for the one that looks like a dry seed head, which is going to be like this one here, what we're going to do there is we're actually going to use this cream color. All right. And with your cream color, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually brush this over the floral tape, because I'm actually going to dust the tape as well. Remember, floral tape takes color very well. All right, so I'm going to just put that just onto the floral tape, as far down as, of course, it's going to be visible. Then I'm going to use the brownie color on top of that. Now remember, if you don't have a lot of like more paler colors, you can of course blend colors. Remember, if you only had sort of like a darker chocolate brown, then what you do is you could actually just take a lot of corn flour or cornstarch and add to it, and that will tone down your colors, okay? And then we're going to then use this lighter brown color. It's going to go over here. So again, I'm just going to rub this over to create the ribs. A little bit of that on the top. And then I'm going to take some chocolate. Okay, so the chocolate is quite strong. All right, so I'm getting rid of most of that. So I'm going to just brush around the edge of this with the chocolate brown. Okay, and again, just going to put just a little touch of the brown, just lightly, onto your ribs here. And just down your center like that. So you're going to get this nice sort of color, you see? It's almost like a dried cedar color. And you can add a little bit of, you know, gray on there as well. So just a little touch of gray can be added just around the edge. So just like, you know, makeup, it's sort of just a process of building up the colors. And then once you've got that completed, going to take your, I'm just working on a piece of paper here. So, and then you're going to take your piece of paper towel. And then on these ones, we're going to actually do like some little splattering. So you get these little tiny sort of like spots on here, okay, which they have in real life. So this is just some, I've got here some brown gel color and a little bit of vodka. So you just add a little bit of vodka to some brown gel color. You can also use powder color as well. And then what we're actually going to do here is I'm using just a toothbrush. You see what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do like this, you see? So I'm actually going to just splatter onto the, so you're just going to take this and just have a little practice on your napkin first. You're just going to lightly splatter onto your, and this gives you this really cool natural effect that you get on the seed heads. You see? So when you have your seed head, you see how you're going to get this natural effect on there. All right? And then once you've done that, going to, obviously these would be then just steamed. All right? So you're just going to steam your seed heads. Now these are not glazed, all right, because when we think about the sort of the fall time, I mean, especially the brown one here, this would be dry. You know, this would be like in a dried flower arrangement. So you're just going to steam it, and then you're just going to stand that up so that can dry. And then on your greeny colored ones, again, you'll just lightly steam those, and that would be it. These are on long stems, so you can just bend those if you need to onto your styrofoam block. On your buds, all right, so on your buds here, you can steam these, all right? So we can actually steam the buds, because these are pretty much finished. You can just lightly steam these. All right, so then you would stand those up into your styrofoam block so they can just dry. All right, I'm just going to move this out of the way. And I'm just going to bring in another piece of paper on here. You know, when you're working on a surface, just protect it with a piece of paper, or as I said, some, you know, plastic like a placemat, and makes it easy then to clean up. Now, when we're doing poppies, poppies have like a little fuzzy stem on them, as you can see here. On the finished poppy, all right, this shows the finished poppy there, but you see how this fuzzy stem, it's almost like a little hairy stem on the poppy when this is actually grows. And this is a really fun way to add textural detail to this. And so what I'm actually doing here is I'm using semolina. Now semolina is used in Italian baking and cooking. So this is used obviously for pasta. It's used also to bake pizzas on. It's also used in semolina pudding. All right, so it's used in this sort of like a fine, as I said, semolina. And then what you do here is you just put it into a little container or a bag. And I've added just a little bit of the foliage green, but just a little tiny amount of it. So what you end up with is just this sort of green color, sort of similar to sort of a pale mossy green color. Okay, I put this in a little shaker. This is definitely the best way to put this and apply this to the piece. Now you want to, as I said, have a piece of paper, because that makes it easier to get it back into the bag. And then what you actually do here, you're going to take your buds, all right? So you're going to do this on your buds. Now we will also do this on the flower, but we'll do that after it's assembled, okay? So what we're going to do is going to take confectioner's glaze. Now, if you were doing this in craft, you could actually take a PVA glue, like a white glue, just add a little bit of water to it so it becomes a little bit more watery, and just brush that over the surface. And then for craft application, you can also buy, for example, you can use a green sand, all right, or you could take just white beach sand and then color it green. But obviously for sugar ones here, we're using the semolina. Now you're going to take some confectioner's glaze, and which is here, which is the thicker of the two products. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to brush this onto the stem like this. Turn this around. You need to just do one at a time. Okay, so you're just going to just brush. And if you use a little brush, what that will do is it will enable you to get the glaze on both sides. Okay, and then all we're going to do now is going to just sprinkle. Just going to sprinkle this onto the here. Just turn it over. To sprinkle this onto here fairly liberally, okay? And you see then what will happen is that's going to give you this sort of fuzziness onto the stem. So it's a really, as I said, fun technique, and I've used this on quite a few different things that have that sort of almost like slightly hairy, fuzzy stem. But you see then this makes it easy to, then once you finish this, you can just take this, and of course it's easy to then put this back into the container and then just store for next time. Okay, so that's sort of how you would do the coloring. So I'm going to just get organized here, ready to show you the final assembly. So just actually to show you how to put the poppy together, and then how we actually then just finish off the steam the poppy, how we assemble the buds and leaves together. So I'll see you real soon. Now we're going to move on to the fun part, which is going to be the assembly of the flowers. I'm going to start off with a smaller poppy. Now, if you remember in the earlier segment, I showed making the small size poppy, and these were the ones that actually were dried in the aluminum foil former with this sort of styrene ball used as a former, like a cup shape. Of course, these could also be done in an orangey color and could be done in the same way as I dried the bigger petals in the crepe foam. And this is the one that I would use for like a California style poppy. You know, California poppy is orange and yellow, and they're a small poppy. The center is a little bit different, but the actual petals are the same, and I said they're quite cupped. So anyway, when we assemble, we're going to use quarter width tape, because remember we taped with quarter width tape the base of the petals. And so now what we're going to do is going to take your petals here, and you're going to just use your pair of tweezers, and I'm just going to bend these sort of just not at a complete angle, probably about a 20% angle here. All right, like this. All right, so these are actually going to be taped around the base. So you're going to put these right at the top, directly at the bottom of where the stamens are. Okay, we're going to use quarter width tape because we don't want to add a lot of bulk here to this. All right, and you can also, another option you could use is you could use dental floss, like I showed in the when I did the peony, and that you could use wax dental floss. Remember, the wax dental floss you have to use because it's stickier than regular dental floss. And so you could actually use dental floss and then just tape over the top once you've got them all taped. All right, so just gonna go around just once so you see how that's gonna put on your first petals. Then we're gonna put in the second set of petals here. So this is gonna go, so these will go directly in between, all right? Just gonna go around once. Don't try and sort of put all the petals on and hold them. You each time going to tape round once, and this will enable you to be able to get the shape. All right, so you see how you have this really beautiful little small poppy. All right, and for those of you that work in craft and obviously air drying clay, this is obviously a nice one to use on for a smaller project. You could use this obviously in air drying clay for Poppy Day as a sort of a, instead of a paper poppy. But anyway, so you're going to tape down with the quarter width tape, and then what I do is just sort of break that off, and then I'm going to then just tape over the whole thing with the half width tape, okay? Because that, as I said, it's just mainly that if we used half width tape at the top, it would just get very, very bulbous here, which we really don't want, because remember they don't have a calyx on them. And then you're just going to just tape down, and you're just going to just tape down to the bottom. And then once you get this taped, okay, so generally what I would do then, I would just take a little bit more of the apple green dust, because naturally sometimes you'll pull some off with your fingers, just dust a little bit of apple green dust right at the base here. And then you would steam this, and then you would steam it. And then once you've steamed it, you would then, if you wanted to, of course, you could put the glaze on here, and then you could then use the, so I'm just going to just gently steam this. Of course, when you first steam it, it's going to look very shiny, all right? It looks very plasticky looking, but as I said, that will just stop, and then once it's dried a little bit, it'll give you a nice natural look, okay? So that's just stand that up. And remember, these are on long stems, okay? Because you want to have, you know, poppies when they grow have a very, very sort of soft, natural look to them, okay? Now, the large poppy, we're going to put that together. So obviously this is going to go on to the bigger size one here. So again, just to show you the basics of that, so you're just going to take your petals here. And then these petals will sit directly at the top here, like that. And again, we're going to go back to your quarter width tape for your dental floss here. I'm going to go around a couple of times here. All right, and you're going to just put these on. Now you see, this is going to give you a little bit more of an open poppy, which I said is more characteristic with the English field poppy. You know, so when we think about in England, poppies growing in fields and things, this is more the style of poppy that you have. You see how the petals sit there like that. And then we're going to then take the next two. These are going to sit into position here. And this is going to give you the, but you see how I'm not really adding any bulk here to the stem, okay? So we're going to just have this on here, and then we're going to take the last one, and that's going to sort of sit here, all right? So you see how you're going to have this sort of beautiful, beautiful poppy here. So remember, some poppies you're going to dry in the crepe foam, in the foam former, and then others you're going to dry in your, as I said, just into your aluminum foil former. All right, but you see how it's a sort of, will give you a flatter looking flower. And poppies are slightly oval, all right, they're not completely round. So especially when you, and there are some varieties, as I explained in my first part of my presentation when I did the petals, there are some varieties that actually have two smaller petals inside and then the two larger petals. So you could do two medium and then two large. Again, just like on the other poppy, we're going to then just tape now with the half width tape, because it's easier to tape evenly with half width tape. And of course, we could also add the pollen on here, like the semolina, to give you the texture on your stems. Now you just have to be a little careful when you're doing this, that you know, once you've steamed this, and then if you're going to go straight away, that obviously just be careful when you sprinkle the pollen, you don't get it on the petals, because it will still be a little sticky from the steam. So you might want to just leave the flower a little bit to dry and then do and then remember, that's an optional step, all right? It's not sort of something you have to do. It's just a sort of a nice technique. And then we're going to take here, just going to just take the poppy, just going to just gently steam that. And that will sort of really bring it to life. You can see the sort of the tonal colors as well. You get this little bit more brighter center because of the orange, and then you're going to get this darker color onto the edge, okay? And you can see here, this is a poppy that I've already put together. That is the medium size, all right? So you can see that the large is obviously, you know, obviously bigger than the medium, but, you know, so depending on your project, on your cake, and you could, of course, because they both have the same size center, you could use both of these in the same arrangement as well. But when you put the poppies together, okay, so when we do the poppies, I'm going to start off first of all with the small poppy. I'm going to take that, and you're going to usually sort of bend your poppy just slightly, all right? It's going to just bend your poppy. Now remember, this is still a little bit obviously from the steam. That will, as I said, disappear. And then I'm going to add to that just a small, just going to put in a small bud, because I'm just going to show you just really like a simple little small, as I said, a small bud here. So this one has got the pollen on, and obviously then I have the open bud here. And what I would a lot of times do is I would just almost like integrate these into each other, meaning that I would actually, like, you see how I've just twisted one over the other like that, because then what will happen is when they stand up, they're not going to droop down, but you want this nice soft sort of look to it. All right, so when you're doing your stems and things, you can of course put these wherever you want them to go. And then you're going to take in your poppy, okay? All right, now the little tiny leaves, these small leaves, are put at the sort of, these go at sort of like the lower intersection. Also, like for example, you can have these down the stem, so you occasionally get these down the stem, but usually you're going to have that just at sort of the start of the spray. And so I'm going to just take this, I'm going to use my half width tape here, and I'm going to add a wire here. This is actually a 20 gauge wire, so I'm just going to sort of just add that. So what it's going to do is going to just give me a little bit of bulk here on the stem. Okay, so it's going to just come around like this. All right, but remember, if you're going to, like this one here, I haven't put the pollen on, you know, the semolina either on this one here, but usually you do all or nothing, okay? So you'd either have all of them on there, but you can see how you're just going to have the little small leaf here, and then another little small leaf is just going to come on the other side here. And see, your stem here will be, of course, this would be thicker now, so this means when it goes into the cake, into a tube or whatever you're going to have, it's going to make it easier to get this in. Okay, just going to just bring these down to wherever you want them to go. Okay, and then you're going to put in your other leaves here, and on this size poppy I would just put in the medium leaves. So you're just going to use the 3, and I'm just going to put in 3 medium sized leaves here, 1, 2, 3 at the bottom like this. Okay, and so you see how, but I'm just giving you an idea because then at the end we'll have all 3 sizes of poppy, so you can see the sort of the scale of them. And then you're going to take your poppy here, just going to just take this down. Now if this was going to go into a cake, all right, so we're talking about this in a cake project. You know, obviously in England traditionally a fruit cake is normally about 7.5 centimeters, about 3 inches deep in the US, and when we do a sponge cake anywhere, we usually do it about 10 centimeters, about 4 inches deep. So normally you're going to cut this to about 3 inches or 4 inches, 7.5 or 10 centimeters long. And then once you're ready to cut that, you would obviously just cut your stem here. Because a lot of times when I'm using poppies, I would like to sort of emulate how they grow. So what you would do is just put like your little straw or your poly dowel into your cake, as I've shown on some of my other videos, and then the poppy would stand up in the cake. And then you could make, like, you could put grass, you could also do some other things like little rocks around where it goes in, so it has that very sort of natural look, like how it grows. Okay, but anyway, so you can see here the sort of the poppy and your poppy bud there, like so. All right, so you can see here we have the small size poppy. Okay, now for the large poppy, I'm just going to do sort of like a similar technique, but I'm also going to show you how to integrate the seed heads into this as well. So I'm going to start off with my buds here. So I have the little buds here, small bud, the larger bud. All right, so usually your green buds you're going to have sort of, and remember how so you just literally just almost like wrap these around each other like that, you see, so you get this very natural, and what this would do, it would help to sort of stabilize them, but you see how it looks very natural then, like almost like how they grow. And then you're going to take your, so I'm going to put in my larger bud, it's going to come over here. Of course you have to think about the sort of the scale of what you're doing as far as, like, you know, how big you want the arrangement to be. And then you'll just again start taping there. Okay. As I said, I'm going to just integrate into this also some of the, going to put in one of the green colored seed pods. So you can just sort of see how that looks in the arrangement here. So I'm going to just take these in and put these in. So, you know, these are going to sort of sit into with the arrangement here. So I'm showing you then it's a little bit more of a, like something you maybe would lay on a cake, or also of course could be stood up as well. So I'm going to put in a seed head into here. So I'm going to add the seed head into this. Of course these could be, and then where you sort of want everything to sort of, you just start with your floral tape going around like this. Now again, I'm going to put in a stronger wire here. This is actually an 18 gauge wire. So I'm going to put the 18 gauge wire here. Okay, so just where everything is going to be put together, I'm going to put this in. I'm going to put some other buds into here. So I'm going to have some little buds further down on this one as well. Just tape this in. And then you can add, so this is going to just sort of sit forward, the little seed pod here. Okay, I'm going to have another seed pod at the back here. Now remember, these would be like, so this really is more this is very much like how the poppy grows, all right, and also the medium-sized one, how it grows, all right, like this, all right. So this is sort of actually like how it would grow in the field. Here, what I'm doing is I'm showing you more like if you were going to do a spray on a cake and you wanted to incorporate the seed pods in here as well, you see. So what I'm doing is doing more like a bunch. So if you went and picked poppies and seed pods, almost like how you put them together in like a little bouquet type of bunch, you see. So I'm just going to add that into here like now. I'm going to put in my third seed pod is going to sit here like so, all right. But this also would look very nice in, you know, like if you were doing this in air drying clay to go into a sort of a jug, like a cream milk jug or sort of a taller vase or things like that. So you see how you're going to put this here like so. Then we're going to take the poppy. All right, so just lay this down. It's a good idea to have sort of some sponge or a towel or something to lay this down in. And again, this one, I don't have the pollen on here, the texture on here from the semolina, but as I said, that's something that you can, of course, do. But also, I will mention that it's sort of more visual at this part of it. This is really where you see that more. So you see how you're going to then lay your beautiful poppy. So your poppy is just going to be laid in here. Okay. Remember, you wouldn't use the brown ones because these are like dry. So you'd use these with like more like dried flowers. Or as I said, like if you're doing a sort of autumn fall type of arrangement, you can use those. I've used those in arrangements where I've made gum paste, flower paste like chili peppers and ginkgo leaves and poppies and other sort of like autumn type of things, autumn cosmos and that. But when you've got more of that sort of orange tone, but you see how you're going to just sort of put these together in more of a natural bunch. And then you're going to put in, so you then can add your little leaves here. So I'm going to add a couple of my small leaves like this. And then I will put these in like this. And of course, you could use a bow on this. So you could use like a burlap Hessian bow. You could do something with, you know, like natural looking bow. And then you can put in some of the bigger leaves here. All right, these are the medium-sized leaves here. So I'm just going to put these in into the arrangement. So 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to finish this off with some large leaves. So this just gives you, where everything comes together, just gives you a nice sort of balance. Like this. Okay, so you can sort of see how you're going to get this nice balance of your leaves here. And then you're going to put in your large leaves as well. So I'm going to do actually just some large leaves at the bottom here also. So I'm going to have these into place. And you can do, there's lots of sort of fun things you can do with something like this. Like if you wanted to, if you, for example, just wanted to lay that down onto a cake, you know, so this, let's say, was on a square cake, what you can actually do there is you can take the main stems here, all right, so like these ones here, which are the actual poppy stems, and just cut those to sort of the same length, and then actually just get rid of some of these little smaller wires. And then that means when you put like, for example, a bow on there, it would look like a natural bunch of flowers where you actually have the stems of the flowers coming out, all right? Or as I said, you could, of course, this is a thicker stem, you're just going to take down here, and again, you just would then put this into a straw, into your cake. And as I said, usually we'll just cut this to about 7.5 or 10 centimeters, because this would be the part that will go into a straw or a tube, okay? And we're going to show you some examples of that. So it's just going to cut this, and you see on this one here, it's got longer stems. So you're just going to trim these to, just going to use some wire cutters here. Just cut through. Cut through the last stem, there we go. And then when you're doing a stem like this, remember you need to make sure you tape over the end of that, because you don't want to have any exposed wires. You see, this is going to be your sort of your large poppy with its seed heads, all right? So see a beautiful arrangement. So if you're going to do this, as I said, on a cake, adding the seed head's a really nice element here. So you can see here we've got the large, and then here we've got the medium poppy. All right. Now it's got longer stems. You see, it's really more like it grows. This is more like a wired bunch. Okay. This is, as I said, the medium-sized poppy here, and then you have the little small-sized poppy there. So you can get the idea of the sort of the scale and obviously how beautiful these look together, and of course the coloring. Now remember, this is only the beginning. You can of course make these in all different fun colors, and we hope those of you that are members of our Facebook group, the Flower Pro Facebook group, will create some beautiful different variations on this. So we're looking excited and very much forward to seeing your color combinations of the poppies you come up with, because remember, there are lots of variety. You know, you have Himalayan, you have obviously Oriental style poppy, you have Icelandic poppy, you have a California poppy, as well as obviously the English field poppy, which I've shown you mostly in this video. So until next time, this has been Nicholas Lodge with the Poppy, and sweet wishes. See you real soon. Bye-bye.